There's a certain kind of performance that doesn't happen on a stage. Instead it happens in living rooms, in group texts perhaps, in friend circles and even in family dinners. It's the smile that we give when we're falling apart. The I'm good that we whisper while we're crumbling on the inside. It's the way that we keep everything light so that no one really notices how dark it's getting. This episode is about that kind of performance, the one that we give just so that we can stay included, the one that makes people feel comfortable even while it's breaking us in half on the inside. It's not that we're lying as much as that we're trying to survive, because somewhere deep down we're really afraid that if we stop pretending to be okay, we'll stop being invited, or we'll lose our place, or we'll be left behind. And right here, between the fear and that silence, is where I want to begin today's episode. Welcome to the Uber Vintagers podcast. Here we believe that intimacy begins where performance ends, and that integrity is not perfection as much as it is alignment. That being known is worth the risk of being seen. This is where we return to what's real and not necessarily polished or performative, just honest. So if you're tired of hiding, welcome. We've learned to keep the peace, right? By keeping our pain to ourselves, to stay in the room. To stay in the room, we've had to sell a certain image. We've made ourselves agreeable, predictable, manageable. We know how to match the tone, right? How to follow the energy, how to sense when vulnerability would be too much for the space that we're in. And so we shut it down before it ever escapes our mouth. Now we do this instinctively, I think, not to deceive, but more so that we can belong. Because for many of us, inclusion has always felt conditional. And the condition has been, just don't disrupt the vibe, right? Don't bring your sadness, don't be inconvenient. So we've learned to adjust. We become whatever keeps the room comfortable. If it requires being funny or chill or low maintenance, good vibes only kind of a scene. And people love this version of us, don't they? They say things like, oh, you're so easy to be around, right? Or you always just lighten the mood. Or you're always a strong one. And we smile because they mean it as a compliment, right? And because it does feel good to be wanted, to be included, to be kept. But the inclusion that demands invisibility is not connection. It's like a quiet exile, because while they're laughing with the version of us that we've learned to offer, the real version of us is still waiting to be seen, waiting to be felt, waiting to be allowed. There's nothing more disorienting than feeling alone in a room that's full of people, knowing that the connection is real, but knowing that that real connection is actually built on a version of us that's really only half true. And here's the hardest part in all this. We've done this for so long, we've started to actually believe that maybe that's all we're allowed. Maybe the cost of closeness is our silence. Maybe the price of belonging is pretending. And so we keep performing, even when it's painful, even when it costs us our sleep, even when we're on the edge of breaking internally. Because to stop pretending would mean to risk it all. And we don't know if we're ready to find out who stays when we're not performing anymore. The fear isn't irrational, though, is it? It's actually an ancient fear. I mean, some of us learned this script very early. At the dinner table where emotions were unwelcome, for example, or in the friend group where vulnerability was a liability, maybe in the classroom where silence meant survival, right? Or in the relationship where too much meant that the door would close. So we learned to read the room before we read ourselves. And we learned to gauge the temperature of others before we even checked in with our own feelings. And so now we show up, not as we are, but as, as who we think they need us to be. We become emotionally fluent in everyone else's needs and emotionally illiterate when it comes to our own needs. And we know how to support others. We know how to uplift them. We know how to make everyone feel seen and safe. Except we don't know how to do this for ourselves. And what makes this wound even harder is how well it's rewarded, how praised we are for our composure, how admired we are for our consistency, how celebrated we are for always showing up. And no one sees what it's costing us. No one asks what we're hiding beneath all this, what's underneath that surface, because we've learned to hide this very well, because we've been using being good at something that they don't even have to question it. And so we go unseen, not because they don't care, but because we've never actually made it safe for ourselves to be real. And we're terrified that if we finally stop pretending, that the people who love us now, they might not know how to stay. That's the silent deal that we keep renewing though. We keep telling ourselves, if I just hold it together a bit longer, right, then they'll keep me around. If I just stay light right now and stay easy and stay agreeable, then I won't be left behind. And so we trade honesty for proximity, and we trade self-expression for inclusion, and we trade our inner world for the comfort of not being alone, even if that comfort is really built on a lie. But lies are heavy, aren't they? Even when they sound like I'm fine, even when they look like a smile, even when they feel like a warm room that's full of people where you're still feeling cold. There's a loneliness that lives beneath being tolerated. And there's this grief in realizing that people love the mask that you're wearing, but have never actually met the face underneath that mask. And maybe that's the most isolating place of all, to be included in everything except for the parts of you that matter the most. See, we think we're protecting the relationship, but really, we're actually protecting our place in that relationship. And in doing so, we're abandoning the only person that we've been tasked with truly protecting. And that's the core of who we are. The cost is cumulative, isn't it? See, at first, a few quiet moments of self-denial are what it looks like. And then it becomes a pattern. And then it morphs into a personality, until one day we wake up and we realize that in essence, we've built a whole identity around staying included, but not necessarily staying real. And the longer that we live like this, the harder it becomes to actually tell the truth, not just to others, but to ourselves as well. And so we start wondering, do I even know what I feel anymore? Have I silenced myself so often that I've forgotten how to speak? And maybe that's the scariest part. Not that no one knows us, but that we've actually become so fluent in pretending that we don't even know who we are without the act that we've been adopting. And we become hollow in the places where our truth once used to live. We've become, in essence, numb to our needs and suspicious of our own sadness, untrusting of our own impulses to speak or to cry or to interrupt the vibe with something that is real or authentic. Because genuine opportunities have felt risky for far too long. But what if the greater risk, though, is never being known? What if the people who keep us around aren't really keeping us? They're just keeping the version that we've trained them to expect. And what if belonging at the cost of authenticity isn't really belonging in the first place at all? See, we can't keep betraying ourselves in the name of inclusion, because inclusion, there's a certain kind of inclusion that demands silence because the PR is better, right? It doesn't matter how many people invite us if none of them ever invite us to be whole. Sometimes we may catch glimpses of what's missing, not in the loud moments as much as in the quiet moments that happen spontaneously, like after the gathering perhaps, or after dinner, or after the fun night out, right? We get home and we take off that mask and we feel this wave of sadness that we can't quite explain. And it's not because of anything that went wrong per se, but because once again, we didn't really show up as who we truly are. Our body was there and our laughs were there, our social script was on point, but our truth had stayed behind, folded neatly and hidden quietly, and ultimately just left untouched. And every time that we leave it behind, we're reinforcing this lie that part of me is too much, or it's too inconvenient, or it's too unsafe to share. But the longing doesn't go away. The longing to say, I'm actually not okay. The longing to show up without any strategy. The longing to stop auditioning just so that you can be you. That longing is not weakness. It's not drama. It's not attention seeking. That longing is a signal. It's this sacred tug back towards your wholeness, towards your honesty, towards the connection that doesn't require you to fracture yourself to say, so that you can have space inside that social setting. See, we don't need more rooms. We need braver ones. We need spaces where presence isn't earned by pretending. There's a version of us that's waiting just beneath the surface, I believe. Not the version that keeps it together as much as the one that can be real. Not the one that knows how to read the energy and adjust accordingly. And not the one that makes sure that no one feels uncomfortable. I'm talking here about the version that's honest, and the version of us that's messy and quiet and sometimes sad. Sometimes it's raw. Sometimes it's just alive. That version deserves to actually belong. Not just to be tolerated, not just to be liked, but and not even just to be included, but to actually have full rights to belong in that space, in a full sense, in a free way, in a way that doesn't have any conditions. Now, this is not going to happen all at once. See, after years of pretending, telling the truth actually takes time. And at first, it feels like a disruption, like risking your rhythm, like breaking the rules that kept you safe this long. But over time, that truth becomes its own kind of safety, right? One that isn't built on compliance, but on true connection. So here's where we want to start small. A pause, maybe. A no when you used to always say yes. An expression of, I'm struggling, right? And when the people who truly love us respond with presence, not punishment, this is when we begin to experience healing. This is the wound that we've carried quietly, that we must perform our okayness to stay in the room. That if we stop smiling, we'll be forgotten. That our pain must be tucked away so that our presence doesn't cost us too much. But here's the truth. You're not too much. You're just tired of being less than whole. See, you were never meant to earn your place by being silent. You were meant to be known, even when you're not okay, especially when you're not okay. Because the people who love you best, they don't need you to be fine. They need you to be real. I hope this has served you well. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.